Hello, happy pot lovers. It has been a hot minute. I had a couple of requests to show how I make the pour overs, the coffee pour overs. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Okay, so this I got off of Joe Thompson's website, and it is a template for a coffee pour over. So this is the size that the finished would be, and then he has lines on here for 10% shrinkage, 12% shrinkage, and 15% shrinkage. So I just printed this out on the computer, and then I made a template. So originally I had taped this on here, but as you know, with clay, paper-ish things don't last very well. So I found a piece of plastic, and I cut out according to this, and I did round the bottom off a little bit so that it doesn't poke down into my piece. And then I marked on there the lines for the finished 10%, 12%, and 15%. So actually it says 12.5%. So 12.5 doesn't really matter. Anyway, I usually use about 2 pounds, but I want to make this one a little bigger, so I went with 2.5 pounds. This is Kentucky Mud Works Roux, which is a very nice clay to use. Okie doke. So when I do pour overs, I use a batt that I can take it off the wheel without distorting it, because you're going to have a flat piece, kind of like a plate. And this is basically like, kind of like throwing a flower pot. Okay. This clay is very cold. It was out on my back porch, and it is 20 degrees out. Well, upper 20s, but still very winter weather. And we are supposed to be in the spring now. So it's a little bit stiff. I did wedge it, but I still have to wake it up here. So you can do these in an individual size or in more of a carafe size. This one is probably going to be about a 2 cup, 3 cup, or a large mug size. And you start out just like everything, getting it centered. Well, this clay is so nice to use. It does have a light speckle to it, but it's a very smooth feeling clay when you're throwing it. Alright, now that I'm centered, mostly, let's get it just a little bit better here. Okay. Now that I'm centered, I'm going to push the outside down some. And I'm going to start kind of dividing it. So, kind of like when you're throwing a flower pot, you're going to leave a saucer down here. And I want to leave this fairly thick because I'm going to trim underneath of it. So I'm going to start pushing this in and flatten this out some. And let's open up. Back on center. All right, let me get some of this slip off my hands and we'll take a measurement here. Okay, stick it down in the middle and you can see we've got a pretty decent, not quite as thick as that, but we've got a pretty decent thickness of the bottom, and I probably could have left it just a little bit thicker, so I'm going to work a little bit of this clay back down into the center, just a little bit. I don't normally do that, but I'll drill a little bit deep. All right, now some water on this and start bringing this up some. And I'm just pressing on the outside to bring this wall up. Air bubble in here. Where was it? Right there. Get that out of there. All right. Now, when you're working on the bottom here, you want to keep this part relatively flat. Keep your rim kind of thick at this point because you're going to bring it out of the bottom there so we don't get soggy bottoms. Okay. I don't usually thread with a sponge, but sometimes I do. Cramps in my fingers. And I will cut this unevenness off. I didn't center it quite as good as I could have, but no worries. Okay. A little bit of water on there, water on the outside. Now we'll start bringing it out and up. And at this point, I just take the slip and get a little bit of water on the slip and use that as my lubrication so I don't over wet the clay. Make sure it's all evenly wet. And it's pretty thin right down there. Alright, and get this a little bit more even here. Okay, water out, clean my hand off a little bit. Let's get the template and see where we're at. Alright, our wall angle is good. And we are right at the 12.5. I think I had about 2 3/4 pounds of clay on this one. Now I'm going to smooth out this base some, and I'm also going to bring in this right here because I think we've got a good bit of thickness right in here. Let me point this. Oops, that was not smart. And let's go ahead. Well, I've got my hand cleaned off for the most part. And just even up this top. So I'm just going to take just a little bit off the top to get that rim even. And it's pretty important that you do keep the rim even because when you trim the bottom, you want that to be pretty even. You can see we've got a pretty thick wall here. We've got room to bring it up some more. So, got a little wet. Hands wet. Bring this in down here. And start bringing that wall. I don't want to change the angle. Just want to work that clay up from the bottom at this point. Slow your wheel down so that you have control. Gouge in there. I'm just filling that in. Okay. Get the water out of the bottom. me feel my wall thickness. I've got a little bit of thickness right there. Okay, now what I'm going to do have this rib, which you can see is kind of curved on the bottom and it's kind of straight. So what I'm going to do is, there's my metal rib of death. It's dropped down here. All right, and I'm going to take my metal rib of death and my wood rib and refine this, scraping the slip off. Getting that angle right. Let's check it. Angle's right, and looks like it's right at about 15. I don't mind if it's a little bit bigger. I was going for a little bit bigger, actually. All right. These cleaned off a little bit. Get the water out of the bottom. And then you can put texture in. You can do a wave going up the just round it where I cut it off. You can do a wave, taking your finger up the side and making the wavy pattern in there. You can, after it gets a little harder, you can cut grooves going up it, which I've done on some, and I'll just put pictures up here. And you can also put divots in it, and I will show you one. It's in the kiln right now that I did with the divots. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this edge up a little bit. So I'm going to take my larger wooden knife and I'm going to hold it tight. I'm going to put it under this edge. Cut in some. And then a little water on here. I'm just going to come under here and turn this up and make a little kind of catch basin, and it also gives you somewhere to grab a hold of it, sitting on top of the cup or whatever. Alright, let's clean the batt up. I'm going to get as much moisture off of this batt as I can, because the more moisture that's in the batt, the longer it'll take for the base to dry. And I want these to dry so I can trim them tomorrow and show you how I do that. And the last thing is, I'm going to cut this, but I'm not going to take it off. Okay, happy pot lovers. So it is the next day, and we are going to put these things, this pour over back on the wheel, and let's see, hopefully centered, mostly. So sometimes these things, if you get it on the wrong hook, it's not quite centered. And I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. It's stiffened up since last night. And I don't think this is going to be dry enough to trim because I have not taken it off the bat yet. But it is dry enough that I can come in here and clean up a few things and put some decoration on it. And that's what we're going to do. So, like I said last night, I have this spring, and I'm going to use it keeping in mind this little part with the end on it. I want it to not be on the rim, and I'm going to take this and make like a bead design on it. And I'm just gently pushing it in. You can use any number of things. I've taken apart a ballpoint pen and used it. Anything that has the right size circle for what you're trying to do. But this gives a nice detail. And you want this to get fairly stiff before you try to take it off of the bat, because you don't want to distort this base plate. And it's kind of thick. If you remember, we left extra thickness on it so that we have room to trim and leave a drip edge. Yeah, I think I have one in here that I can show you. And this spring is a little bit large for this rim. As you can see, the circle is not, ideally you want something that the circle is the same size as the rim that you've got. But this will be fine. Now I'm just going to smooth this a little bit, and I'm actually going to wait until this is pretty much leather hard, and then I'll go over it with a sponge and smooth out any of the sharp edges. If you leave this edge raw, it looks nice, but if you glaze it, the glaze pools in these little indentations, and that looks really nice as well. So, it's your art, you do you. And this is almost leather hard. I would call it leather. It's not soft, it holds its shape, but it's not leather hard either. All right. It's an elegant little edge. Okay. Now we need a trim tool. And I'm just going to take a wire tool and so I'm going to take 2 sticks, lay them across here. That one's wonky. Better. Lay them across the middle like that. Put that in the middle. And let's do 5. So 5 is the purple. Alright, so we've got one here, purple, and one here, purple, one here, let's turn it, one here, purple, one here, purple, one here, purple. Okay. Going to go right down to the bottom. There's one. And this will give the coffee a place to run down as it seeps out of the filter. Tend to do them a little deeper down in and shallower up at the top. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Notice that this kind of went to one of the other ones, so I'm going to match them. You can do anything you want. You can do a spiral going up. And I will show you, I'll put pictures up of some of the other ones that I've done. All right. After that sets up a little bit, I will go in there with a sponge and clean out the boogers, but I'm not going to do that now. I'll wait till it's leather hard. All right. Let's take our wire again. Come down here and hold it very tight. Now, we are going to turn this over, but before we do, I'm going to clean this clay off the boards. And as a matter of fact, I'll just get a fresh board to put it on. I have plenty of them. So, alright. And this should be sitting pretty level. It is. It doesn't go up and down. It's not centered, but it doesn't go up and down. So, we're going to set that aside, and we will come back to it tomorrow. All right, happy pot lovers. It is trim time. So I'm going to go, I just gouged it with my fingernail. I'm going here with a sponge and just clean up those clay boogers from where I trimmed this. Get rid of any sharp edges. You can also do this with your brush. Take this in here and just clean out those little clay boogers that are stuck in there. Smooth that out right there. Okay. And I'm going to take this and go around here and just smooth out any sharp points. Inside and outside. Feel it with my finger, make sure it feels alright. Around here, do the same thing. Everything's nice and rounded. And this sponge is pretty dry. I mean, if I squeeze it, I get a couple drops of water out of it, but that's about it. All right, let's trim. Pretty even right there. And I am going to get sulfate. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to secure this. Push down into the batt, not into your piece. That way you won't distort it. Put it up next to it, push down into the batt, and it squeezes up against your piece without putting pressure on your piece. All right. And if you have to really level it out, you can use a short form. This is just a rasp that I got at a hardware store. Just hold it still and let it knock off the high spots. Same thing with if you're not quite centered the foot with the top, you can even it up just like that. This takes it down pretty darn quick, and it's a large surface area with small cutting areas, so it will even out your piece without causing chattering or something like that. And let's clean this up. And I'm just going to clean this surface up real quick here. Now, those boogers off of there. Now I'm going to set a center here. Oops. So what we want to end up with is a sharp area in here, and this will cause the coffee as it runs out, it'll catch around here, but this will make it drip off from this sharp edge and into the cup. So that is what we're going for. And this is a number 2 coffee filter that I've got in there, and I will test that out in the morning I would test it out tonight, but I don't want coffee before bed, so. This is pretty much like trimming a foot on a cup or a plate or anything like that. It's kind of like trimming a double foot on a plate, actually. So I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but today is the 20th of March. It was about 70 degrees today here in Virginia. And a nice day, but it was breezy. And tonight it's raining, and we're supposed to have rain all weekend. But a couple of days ago, a couple of nights ago, it was in the 20s. Pollen is terrible. Right, I am going to switch to a square trimmer. Always keep two hands on your trimming tool and one of them on the pot if you can. Can't always do one of them on the pot, but you want to anchor yourself when you're trimming just like you do when you're throwing. Now I'm going to get this edge right here as sharp as I can. Let's bring this in flat. I don't mind if this has a little dome in the middle. Kind of helps the dribble stay in the middle then, instead of going out to the edge. But the big thing is to have this sharp edge right here to encourage the coffee to drip into your cup and not out further. All right. And I might switch up and use the ribbon tool here. Ah! That is not what I wanted to do. That's better. All right. Where's my mud tool? There it is. One nice thing about this is you can feel how thick you are here. I don't want to go too thin. Right here, I don't have all that much room. And you want this to be pretty stiff when you're trimming it, so you don't distort the deck here. It's too thin or too soft. You're going to create a problem. As you're pushing on it, it's going to distort your flat portion. Alright, let's bring this down like this. I can bring this in some.
You recording your
Yes, I am. Right. Let's get this out of here without damaging the pot. A little bit more square here. Okie doke. Just cleaning that up a little bit right there. Now I'm going to take this red rubber rib, smooth out some of these trim marks right here. All right. Now the last thing we have to do, turn it over and clean the batt off. Before I poke holes, I'm going to smooth this out in here because it had a little bit of roughness where I was sponging it out before. So I'm just kind of burnishing that with my hand. And do I want to put anything in here? I don't think I do. I think it's got enough decoration on it. So I will get my hole punchers. And it's big. Looks like a decent size right there. So the question is, how many holes do we want? Do we want 2 or do we want 3? I think I'm going to go for 2 on this one with this size hole. So